Madden 10, the best Madden in terms of simulation style gameplay, meaning that this Madden emulates real life better than any other to be created. I know a lot of the PS2 Madden games had a ton of features that were stripped from the future titles, but in my opinion, the throwback PS2 gameplay was very arcade-like, but the features were unmatched. The PS2 franchise mode was unmatched, and I played my fair share of PS2 Madden, so don't try to say it was before my time. I've always enjoyed the limitless features, but the gameplay was too arcadey for me. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy playing them, but I can never go into an in-depth franchise because I wasn't a big fan of the gameplay. Now, with the current state of Madden, I haven't really been a fan of it. It seems to be catered to more of the competitive style of online gaming, but the gameplay comes off as very goofy. Players feel weightless, DBs play the ball better than receivers, cheesy one-play touchdowns, and Ultimate Team has completely taken over the game. I used to really like Ultimate Team up until around Madden 20, but now it feels like it's completely pay to win and a battle between who can cheese the hardest. I've stepped away from the modern Madden, so I'm a bit out of touch. It's a lot of videos boycotting the modern Maddens, and I agree with most of the takes. They ain't showing the franchise guys no love, but this ain't one of those videos. It's just one to highlight one of my favorite Maddens. My favorite Madden, Madden 10. I wonder how to look in the atmosphere. Now you know my stance on this game. I believe that Madden 10 has the best simulation style gameplay. Madden games categorize their gameplay in three categories: arcade, simulation, and competitive. Arcade gameplay enhances the probability of high scoring games and a lot of turnovers, big hits, picks, and crazy touchdowns. This mode is typically for players that don't take the game as seriously and just want to get on and mess around a bit. Now, simulation on the other hand, which is my favorite gameplay type, is for players who enjoy a more realistic playthrough of the game and wants the game to emulate real life football. And franchise mode is usually where these guys live. Since the newer Madden show little care for the franchise mode, the simulation gamers have resulted in playing the older titles for a more satisfying playthrough. Now, these newer Maddens are catered to the competitive gamers, which is another term for head-to-head online gamers. The modes these guys typically play are Ultimate Team, Draft Champions, and a simple head-to-head game. With online gaming becoming more prevalent and profitable nowadays, EA struck gold with their game mode Ultimate Team, and with Ultimate Team being so profitable, they shifted their focus mainly on Ultimate Team. They even removed Draft Champions as its own game mode and implemented it under Ultimate Team, renaming it MUT Draft, even though it's basically the same game as it was before. Now, I don't blame EA for taking the most profitable route, even though the newer Maddens are decent at best. If it results in them getting higher revenues, then I understand. You got to remember, EA is a business at the end of the day, and the motive behind businesses is to make money. Now, who I can blame is the consumers. This sounds bad, but a company will only produce what an audience will consume, and gamers now are in love with Ultimate Team, even though it siphons hundreds or potential thousands out of these guys' pockets every year to build the best team, just for them to restart the same process over the next year. I kind of went off topic for a bit, but now you get the concept of the three gameplay styles of Madden, which you probably already knew, but I felt it was necessary to mention to add context. Now, I feel that there were different eras of Madden that have been catered to the three different gameplay styles, not considering any Madden that came out before the PS2 era in this discussion, because I feel that the technology just wasn't there yet and Madden really didn't have an identity yet. So from Madden 01 to 08 was the arcade style gameplay. Now, most experienced Madden gamers will object to this claim and say that the PS2 Maddens were the best to go to for a simulation style of gaming, which I understand. The PS2 Maddens were heavily rich in features and game modes. Now, if you value features and multiple game modes over the general gameplay, then I can understand how you can make that argument, but strictly based on gameplay, it's arcade-like. I don't see how anyone can look at this gameplay and say that it mirrors real life, and a part of that is due to the lack of technology in the early 2000s. Now, if we had the engines that were being used for today's games being used in '04, then the PS2 Madness would blow any other football game out. No debate. Now moving on to the era that in my opinion was the best era of Madden, and I'm not sure how many other people share the same opinion with me, because the franchise guys tend to lean toward the PS2 Maddens and the head-to-head guys tend to lean toward the more newer titles. But from Madden '09 to Madden 13, I feel were the best years for simulation style gameplay. Even though game modes from the PS2 era were stripped away from these titles, I feel it retained enough game modes and customizable options to classify these titles as entertaining and provided a replay value and need to come back to the game. Not to mention, in this era, Madden moments were introduced. But then again, these classifications are strictly based on gameplay. How good were the animations? What engine was it running on? Did the attributes equate to on-field gameplay? Things of that nature. I feel that like these 360 era Maddens did what the PS2 Maddens couldn't in terms of gameplay. So realistic player models and better physics, and it's probably a list of more things, but no need. So let's go on to the next one. Now for the competitive style of gameplay, the online style of gaming. This is the modern style of Madden, the competitive era, from Madden 25 to the most recent release of Madden 22. Even though the majority of these modern games have an option for gamers to choose between the three gameplay styles, overall its main focus is making competitive gaming the centerpiece, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Even though you'll see multiple fans of the franchise be disappointed with the new style of Madden, I don't believe they are upset because EA focuses more on the online game modes, but because EA has completely abandoned the game mode that they favored. And this is where I currently stand. As Madden graduates from year to year, you'll notice more online catered game modes and features, while noticing a decrease in single player game modes and features. Specifically franchise. Over the years, you'll see franchise mode dwindle into a stale copy and paste game mode that used to be great. But this is not what the video is supposed to be about. It's a controversial topic. It's a lot of opinions floating around, and with me being in the community, of course I have some thoughts of my own. So, in the earlier stages of the competitive era, the Ignite engine was going crazy. Everybody loved it. It wasn't the most realistic gameplay, but I'd argue it's the funnest. It's the reason why NCAA 14 and Madden 25 are the golden children of the 360 era. This was the dawn of the Ignite engine, arguably the best engine Madden has ever used. If you had any stick skills from Madden 25 through Madden 16, most likely you're probably goated. And in my opinion, I feel that the Ignite engine kept the Madden critics quiet throughout the next gen years. Madden 25 through Madden 16 were all considered good or above average Maddens. 17 and 18 passed through. I actually really liked 18, but in small droves the Madden critics kept growing. When 19 came out, the community rage came out, with player ratings tanking and the community becoming more vocal about the disdain for the new title. And ever since then, every Madden to be released has been in a hot seat. All this to say that in order for a competitive style Madden to be highly ranked, the gameplay can't be sub 5. It has to be above average, and lately, Madden hasn't been hitting the mark. So with all of the eras of Madden that we've been through, there have been a select few of Madden titles to reign supreme over the other yearly releases, while other Maddens unfortunately slip into a vile state of disappointment. With multiple Maddens being highly rated or highly criticized, there's been one Madden that I feel has been overlooked. Honestly, I feel like this Madden belongs in the top 3. Unfortunately, it has slipped into a category of just being average, and most of the community just doesn't have an opinion on it. Now, the Madden in particular I'm referring to is Madden 10, and in this video, I'm going to show you why Madden 10 is overlooked and undervalued. Ooh. Okay, so if you saw that clip, you probably just thought, damn, he just got smoked. Well, you're right. And now I'm going to let you know why I got smoked. It's because of an animation technology that was used in Madden 10, which I very much enjoyed, called the ProTac animation technology. The ProTac feature was new that year and was advertised on the back of the box, explaining it as, make every play count. The play isn't over until the whistle blows with the all-new ProTac animation technology, where 3 to 9 man gang tackles, fumble pile-ups, improved blocking schemes, and more. You feel what it's like to fight for every yard, and it's safe to say EA delivered on their claim. This technology didn't only allow players to pile up for gang tackles and fumbles, it allowed ball carriers to juke, spin, and truck out of contact. Now there's a lot of ways I could explain the greatness of this technology, but I feel that it's best that if I just showed you. So let's get into it. So as you can see in this clip, Chris Johnson is going absolutely crazy. So first he absorbs the contact and stiff arms the safety. This animation was a product of the ProTac technology. This broken tackle wasn't just any ordinary broken tackle we're used to seeing in Madden. What happened here was the user control safety took a damn near perfect angle towards the ball carrier, and as you can see, the safety made first contact with him before the stiff arm animation was triggered. Now typically in Madden, the first to summon their animation will win the tackle battle. For example, if a ball carrier were to summon a juke, stiff arm, truck, or a spin before the defender could make contact, and their rating was sufficient enough, they'll typically win the tackle battle. Not necessarily meaning that they'll break the tackle, but they will be rewarded the extra yardage. And if the defender were to make initial contact before the ball carrier could summon any moves, 9 times out of 10 the defender was winning that battle. But in this case, the defender made first contact and the ball carrier was able to counter it. So instead of Chris Johnson displaying his athleticism by just cutting and juking through the defense, you can see him pushing guys off of him and bouncing off of tackles. And this resulted in a more realistic, cleaner looking gameplay. Now moving on to the next ProTac animation that was triggered in this play, what you'll notice initially is a 5-man pileup, and miraculously, Chris Johnson stayed on his feet and made his way to the end zone. You probably think, yeah, it's kinda cheese. But once you actually analyze the animation and break down the physics behind why it triggered, you'll begin to appreciate it more. So first, CJ comes out of that stiff arm pretty strong and goes head up with safety LaRon Landry. Neither of the guys end up gaining an edge on each other, resulting in a stalemate. Now these two are body to body with CJ2K fighting for extra yardage and Landry attempting to stand his ground and stop him in his tracks. So while these two are body locked into a stalemate, 2 Redskins defenders step in to assist their teammate. Unfortunately, Chris Johnson was already in front of them and they were forced to pursue from behind. Now, that's how the pileup was formed. Now let's get into how the pile broke down and CJ managed to stay up. First, the 2 defenders were already at a disadvantage by getting a hold of him from behind. Since they were already pursuing from behind, the best bet was to tackle him from the rear, cause him to fall forward. But unfortunately, the force exerted from the 2 assisting tacklers wasn't enough to cause the ball carrier to fall forward. Instead, it created a 4-man pileup. As you can see, the 2 defenders in the back, their feet aren't moving too much. They're just holding on for dear life, hoping for a forward progress call. But Chris Johnson kept his legs turning, causing the pileup to move forward. And as you notice Chris Johnson keeping his legs turning and fighting through the contact, you notice the defenders in the back legs begin to shuffle a bit as they get dragged along. And you can start to see where their hold on the ball carrier became compromised. Now let's look at the front of the pile where the stalemate first occurred. An important thing you'll notice is that Chris Johnson is physically lower than LaRon Landry. And if you ever play football, you know the golden rule. The lowest man wins, and that's exactly what happened. You can see Landry firmly planting his feet in the ground on initial contact, and as CJ keeps his legs turning, Landry unwillingly backs out of that position, falling to the ground, compromising his stance, and ultimately giving up an 80-yard touchdown. This is just one instance of the ProTac technology being used in gameplay, and of course there are many more animations, but this video is already pretty long, so I'm not going to analyze any further ones. And by the way, don't think that these animations are just a cheesy bailout for the ball carriers to finesse their way out of a well-defended play, because the majority of the time when these ball carriers attempt to break out of these conservative tackles where the defender had made first contact, you can see them attempt to juke, truck, or even spin out of the tackle. But most likely they wouldn't be able to break free. It really depends on the tackle rating of the defender and the break tackle rating of the ball carrier. And also player weight affects it as well. And for the animations of ball carriers breaking out of gang tackles, those scenarios rarely happen depending on what difficulty you're playing on. But when it did occur, it typically triggered for heavier running backs or superstar players like Adrian Peterson, Brandon Jacobs, or Calvin Johnson. It was an excellent way to distinguish the great players from the average. That was the ProTac animation technology that made the physics in this game seem so realistic. On to the next feature. Now the next feature that I feel made this game so great isn't really a feature at all. It's yet again another gameplay feature, and I'm really a big fan of Madden 10's gameplay. And that should send a message to game devs. You don't need an abundance of game modes to make a game fun to play. Of course you do need a decent amount to keep the players returning to your game, but If your gameplay is great and you have a decent amount of game modes, you can reach an audience. Let's take All Pro Football 2K8 for an example. Most sports gamers look at this gameplay as the should be standard for simulation football. Now, although this gameplay was held to a high regards, there were no game modes to keep the players returning to this title. Now imagine if this game only had a franchise mode. It'll probably be priced the same as NCAA 14. Now I've played this game and I know this gameplay looks good from a spectator perspective, but personally, I don't like the way the game played in terms of controls and how the controls equated to player movement. It looks good, but it feels awkward. Maybe it's because I'm used to Madden, but overall I didn't like it. But I know the majority of the community liked it, so I'm betting if this game had a franchise mode, it would have been a high ticket retro. All that to be said, just to drive the point home that if a game has outstanding gameplay, it'll reach an audience and be remembered for the right reason. And one way to create outstanding gameplay is to focus on the little things. Add little details to make the game feel more realistic. When your game is supposed to emulate real life, small details can take you a long way. Small AI reactions can make the game seem a lot more realistic. And programming the AI to have a simple sense of their surroundings and not out on the field wandering like they're in no man's land makes it feel like the AI actually have a physical brain. And I'm not a dev, and I know what I'm saying isn't as easy as we like to think, but then again, we're dealing with AAA developers. So with that being said, let's jump into some of the little things that made this game feel so realistic. So in this clip, it appears as if the receiver gets hit up by LaRon Landry, causing him to cough that ball up, and the linebacker comes in to scoop up the fumble and proceed to head in the other direction. But actually, the play resulted in an incomplete pass. And of course, the players don't know that in real time. A lot of the time in real life, when the ball is on the ground and it's a close call, you'll see players continue to pursue the ball, not knowing if the ball is dead. And this instance is replicated in Madden 10's gameplay. It's nothing too major, but it's something small that makes the game feel all the more realistic. Next up, we have a brilliant display in the player awareness. I'll go ahead and let it play out before I give my commentary. Check it out. So this is a great play by superstar wide receiver Andre Johnson. And Andre Johnson is a big receiver, so as soon as he catches the ball, we see him throw the smaller cornerback Asante Samuel to the ground. Now, even though Andre has the ability to break off tackles, his player IQ tells him that the best way to get to the end zone is to get there untouched. And that's what we see him do as soon as he breaks this tackle off. He immediately starts playing the numbers game. To his right were about 4 active defenders, and to his left was absolute daylight. So he circles out of that and heads up the sideline. The safety took a bad angle and he's home free. Great play, Andre Johnson. Now in this next clip featuring Aaron Rodgers is another instance of realistic player awareness being used in this game. Now before we analyze this play, we're going to let the scenario sink in a bit. So it's 3rd and 5 in your own territory with about 40 seconds left in the third quarter. Now look at the score. This game is already on the verge of getting out of hand. So this third down is very crucial at this point. The ball is snapped and A-Rod is taking his time in that pocket. No receivers really seem to be open. One guy on the left, but he doesn't want to risk throwing that pick that'll seal the game. So with one option left, A-Rod decides to take off. But as soon as he reaches the first down mark, a heavy linebacker shows up. And Aaron Rodgers is a smart guy, and he knows in order to get the first down, it ain't going to be by running through this guy. So he wisely takes an angled dive away from the linebacker and past the sticks. And this is where player awareness attribute comes into play. It may sound like I'm over exaggerating a bit, but we haven't seen small details like this in Madden in so long, and it's probably the reason why I still play this game to this day. And there's a lot of more small details I could show, but I don't want to spend too much time on this segment, so I'll just show one more thing that happened really often in Madden 10's gameplay. Just something simple as the second string returner signaling to the first string to take the knee in the end zone. Once again, it's nothing major, yet a subtle feature to make the game feel all the more realistic. And just because the second string returner signaled to the first string to take the knee didn't necessarily mean that he'd actually do it. A more riskier returner was prone to take the ball out regardless of the circumstance, rather than a more conservative returner taking a knee. So that's a couple smaller details that were implemented in Madden 10's gameplay, adding a realistic touch to the game, and overall resulting in Madden 10 having one of the best simulation style gameplays. Now we're going to get into some of the game modes and customizable abilities that made this game so fun to play. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now it's late 09 to 2010, and the drip today is nothing like it was 12 years ago, and that's probably one of the only things that the newer Maddens have over Madden 10. But one thing that is sorely missed is the color tinted visors, and it's cool that they have resurfaced in the yard mode, but it's nothing like seeing the guys flying around the field with the multicolored visors on. And I don't know how much of these visors being removed from simulation football is on EA's part, because I think that they're actually banned in the NFL, so it's probably out of EA's control. But it's cool to see them in the yard mode though, and yard is pretty much all I play in terms of the modern Maddens. Now the creative team feature is one of my favorite features that was stripped from the series, and I'm pretty sure the majority of the community agrees with me, and I'm pretty sure players would rather create their own team with their own personal touch on it rather than to be limited to a pre-created relocation team. Now relocation teams in franchise mode is the only thing we have close to a creative team feature in modern Maddens, and the franchise mode has been sucked so dry from all existing content. The franchise guys are just itching for a new touch to the dried out game mode, and at this point I'm willing to believe that if creative team feature resurfaced and it was a copy and paste straight from Madden 10 to Madden 22, the franchise guys wouldn't have as much of a disdain for EA, and Madden 10's creative team isn't the best we've seen in the series. It'll just be something to show the community that they're being listened to. Now you just don't only have the option to create a team from scratch and import players based on your desired preference, but in franchise mode you have the ability to take an existing team and rebrand it with the same features used in create a team. It's really a lot of freedom when it comes to this feature as well, and creative people can really flourish with this amount of assets to choose from. It's really amusing to extract the ideas from your mind and place them in the game, then compete with the team that you uniquely created. And I feel that the new age Maddens are missing that creative element with a slew of other things. For all the gamers who created a cupcake team or grabbed the lowest overall team who had no hope in the beginning, then build them to become a championship contenders, it's rewarding once you finally seen that once trash team become a powerhouse in the conference. And for those people who say calm down, is just a game, remember it's a niche out there for everyone. And with that being said, I was going to do a segment on this title's franchise mode, but I feel that the past throwback Madden franchise modes are already established enough to where it doesn't need any further analysis. I feel that other content creators have covered the old franchise modes well enough, and they already beating EA over the head enough, so I'm gonna cut them some slack. I was really just aiming to showcase the features that were potentially overlooked or undervalued when this title was released, was the latest release on the market. And I guess another one was the Madden moments, which is also an established game mode and the community already knows its greatness, unless you're a younger Madden fan. And I think EA sort of resurfaced it in the Ultimate Team game mode as a single player live event. I don't remember exactly what it's called. I remember having to replicate a live event for a certain card, but I'm not really sure about that. I haven't played Ultimate Team in a while. Another thing that this title had was the classic Madden mini games, and of course the Superstar mode, but these are all beloved game modes that are pedestalized by the OG Madden forefathers, and it's really common knowledge throughout the community. And I probably left out a couple of things, but overall I feel that I've touched on everything that made this now 13-year-old game so great. If you haven't gotten the chance to play this game and you have a 360 or a PS3 sitting around, I highly recommend you scooping this game up. The free market value is sitting at around $5, so it's a cheap pickup. I'm not sure if there's any Madden 10 emulators out there. If so, that's one way to play it. If you don't have an older console, I believe the median price for both consoles is sitting at around $110, and most sellers actually sell their consoles with multiple games. So that's something to look into if you're interested in retro gaming. And that's about it. That's my take on Madden 10, the best simulation Madden to ever be released. If you're interested in hearing my takes and reviews on other titles, go ahead and subscribe. I should have some future uploads coming soon. Appreciate it, and I'm out.